Hi, Lousy kids. I'm here to talk to you about Aquaman 2, aka Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, what should have been called Aquaman 2 Black Manta's Revenge. Really, that should have been the title. That would certainly get more people into theaters than Lost Kingdom, I think. But Lost Kingdom is a classy name, and it really is the plot of the movie. So, in the first Aquaman movie, uh, Aquaman did kind of an uncharacteristic thing where he kills Black Manta's dad. He doesn't kill him, but he leaves him trapped, dying. So, he's not really being super heroic there. And I don't know why, except that this is a Jeff Johns idea to give Black Manta more of a motivation. I don't really care for that, but that is his motivation here. He wants revenge on the guy who killed his dad. Black Manta finds an evil trident, which, when joined together, puts him in contact with an ancient villain, and it kind of starts controlling him. And he starts finding some ancient energy source called orichalcum, which poisons the planet and heats up the atmosphere. And that is the basic plot of the movie. Aquaman has to stop him. Okay, I'll just jump right to it. Go see it. It's great. I love this movie. If you like the first movie, you should like this one because it's very similar to the first movie, except that it also has a more coherent plot. The first one is an overpacked plot. Just way too much stuff in it. This is a very good one. I loved it. My wife loved it. My parents, who didn't even see the first one, enjoyed it, although my mom kept asking me which one was the bad guy. The line, "Is that the bad guy?" is what she said when an evil decayed corpse with glowing eyes appears talking about destroying the planet. So that's my mom. I'm going to make a bold statement here. The writers of the Aquaman movies know their subject better. They know Aquaman and his mythology and his past stories way better than anybody who has ever written a Batman movie. They do a really good job here. I would swear that they have probably read the 1986 miniseries, because in that he has a camouflage suit. It's about lost kingdoms from the many different kingdoms underseas, and also that was one where it kind of fleshed out Ocean Master as the bad guy, and it also introduced the fact that Aquaman loves his brother. So that sounds silly, but the familial feelings between the two brothers, it's developed here very well. And I think Ocean Master really appears as a much better character than in the first movie. In this movie, they even found a way to use Topo the octopus as a sidekick. So they're finding ways to dredge up all these things from various Aquaman comics and make them work in the movies. Now, everybody's going to ask about one thing. Yes, Amber Heard is in it. No, her part is not tiny, but it is minor as it could be for somebody whose child is threatened and whose family is threatened, and she's Aquaman's wife, so you can't really get rid of it. But yeah, she's in there as much as they could possibly trim down her part, and I think her part is very well done. If you were to look at her and you didn't know who Amber Heard is, you would say she's doing a good job, which is not something you could say about Ezra Miller in The Flash. That was just a bad performance, and he's a creep off screen. Amber Heard, I understand having political reservations against a actor or actress, because I won't watch Jane Fonda in much of anything. I really don't like seeing her. It's just, that's a principle. But, if you can get past it, Amber Heard's performance is okay, and I like it. And just remember that any money she makes is going to her ex-husband, so there's always that. Patrick Wilson as Orm really steals the show here. He really develops this character so much better than in the last one. And somebody in my comments when I first did a rough draft on Facebook pointed out that Patrick Wilson is really the guy who should be playing Aquaman. He looks like Aquaman. He's blonde. He looks the part. The casting of Jason Momoa was done by a different director, and that was when they were planning to have him not do the golden suit and the green pants. They were just going to have him in a bunch of tattoos and looking tough. And I think that this version of Aquaman works. I'm not crazy about Jason Momoa, but I don't hate him. I think he's done a fine job, and if it gets more people to like Aquaman, I'm okay with that. But Ocean Master is a much more interesting character now. I really like him. So I think kudos to Patrick Wilson, a guy whose name I can never remember. I always have to look it up. Even now, I had to have a little note on it because I never remember his name. But he was in The Conjuring. He's in Insidious. He's done a lot of stuff that is small, and you have to be reminded of what he's done. But he's a really good actor, and I think he does a great job in this. This movie is slightly less of a day-glow eyesore than the last one was. The ocean here tends to look like the space in Guardians of the Galaxy, where there's just smears of color everywhere and fireworks, and in actuality, space is black with white dots, and that's it. And ocean is very little light, and it looks dark, and there's shapes, and that's about it. So, they really color it up just to make it look more interesting visually. But the last one, I just remember they did that too much. It was just a lot of pink and orange and blue, This one looked a little better. The movie is so good. I really hate to think how many people are just going to skip it because of Amber Heard being in it, or because it's the end of the DCEU and they're like, well, this doesn't matter anymore. That doesn't really matter. I mean, when did it ever matter whether a superhero movie spins off into something else or is part of something bigger? When was that the standard by which we judged a movie? Judging it as a movie, if you just watched Aquaman 1 and 2, like maybe 10, 15 years down the line, people will have like box sets, or, well, they probably won't even have hard physical media, but, they'll watch the two movies together. They won't even know that there was a Justice League movie. If you just watch it self-contained, there's nothing else from the exterior DCEU in these Aquaman movies. There's no guest appearances by Wonder Woman when it goes, Shazam style. No, there's nobody else from the Justice League in it. You can just enjoy these as probably the only two Aquaman movies that Aquaman will ever get in our lifetimes. And I think they're good. So basically that is my recommendation. You're probably wondering, is there anything I didn't like about it? Well, a little bit. This is a PG-13 movie. I was surprised that it did not have an obligatory F-bomb, which is going to be the thing even in DC Comics movies. The last Batman movie had one. And, if you're going to still market this stuff on Underoos and other things for little kids, then you should keep the language, down a little bit. And so they don't have that. They don't have the F-bomb, but every other word is in there, and some of it quite a lot. They just have Aquaman. Aquaman's a potty mouth, because that's how they establish that he's a down-to-earth guy, and he's kind of tough. He just, says PG-13 swear words a lot. And, by the way, when we were watching last night, even the trailers in front of our PG-13 movie had swear words that I never saw in trailers before. It's kind of like they know you're going to a PG-13 movie, so we'll just stick those in there. So it's like, thanks a lot. Now my parents are already annoyed about the state of the world, and the movie hasn't even started yet. So thank you, Fall Guy trailer. Anyway, your mileage may vary on Aquaman getting peed on his face every time they change the baby's diapers. I mean, I know it's standard, and anybody who actually has a baby will say, well, yeah, that happens. But, this goes back to 3 men and a baby. I mean, we've seen it. Do something else. They actually have a scene where he dodges the baby's pee, and Mira uses her powers to angle the pee back into his face, which is mean, and there's no point in it. And why is she doing this to the man she loves? And also, you've got Amber Heard doing a scatological thing, which you don't want to do that. They should have taken that out. Let's see. I have to talk about one thing. Black Manta. They rarely call him Black Manta. They do call him that maybe one or two times, but they mostly call him David Kane. And I'm going to be honest here. I had no idea that was his real name. Up until very recently, he'd always just been some nameless guy called Black Manta. But I never knew his name was David Kane, but they say it a lot in this movie. The title does not get used enough, and this is just the way that all superhero movies seem to be, where they're a little embarrassed about the fact that people call themselves superhero code names, and they have big, colorful outfits. They just can't get away from being a little embarrassed about it. And it's like, you need to get past this. You don't see like Harry Potter being embarrassed about, the fact that there's magic stuff around, and like, oh my gosh, elves, that's so embarrassing. No, just, this is the world you're in. Embrace it. I'd like to see more of that. Black Manta has a hammerhead sharp-shaped submarine. He also has robotic squid fighter vehicles. He doesn't use anything that's shaped like a manta ray. And the only person who does use a manta ray ship is Aquaman, which is kind of messed up. Why can't they just stick to the code names, you know? Embrace the code names. Black Manta is Black Manta. He should have a manta-shaped ship. I don't think that's that hard, you know? Related to avoiding the whole costume thing, Aquaman spends a third of this movie in a stupid sweatshirt, and there's no explained reason. He has a really cool camouflage suit, which he ditches and stops using, even though it makes him invisible for short periods of time. I don't know why they would not have that. There's no explanation for why he's suddenly wearing the shirt, which he wears for a lot. And that may just be a matter of reshoots, and maybe they left out a critical scene or something. I would like to see Aquaman using his powers more than he does. I know maybe, again, they're embarrassed about the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo thing from the Super Friends, but they use it. They use those rays, you know, the concentric circles coming off his head. They use it. It's a little classier, but every now and then he should be calling a fish to help him. You know, there's a lot of scenes where it would have been useful. There's also a scene where Topo, who's kind of like a special forces octopus, giant octopus, by the way, is not where he can see him, and he's shouting for him. And I almost tucked to the screen. I said, dude, you're a telepath. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, but I didn't say it. He's a telepath. He should know where the aquatic life is, or be able to summon it without having to shout to it. I think they kind of forgot that he can do that. These are quibbles and they're nitpicks, but these are not signs that the movie is bad. I want to make it clear, I had a better time watching this than watching Blue Beetle, Shazam 2, and Black Adam combined. This is much more entertaining, well thought out movie that from beginning to end, the plot makes sense, which you can't say about a lot of those other movies. It works for me. It may not work for you. Again, your mileage may vary, but this was a great time at the movies. It may not be your favorite thing, but don't avoid it because you think it's going to stink. I thought it was really enjoyable. For anybody who's wondering if is it really SJW? Well, not really, but it opens with Aquaman fighting pirates who are raiding a container ship, and they're all white guys, you know, because that's who raids container ships. I mean, we know who does, but you can't have a big white guy beating up on 20 black Somalians. So instead you get guys who, they look like they're right out of central casting as Irish, Australian, maybe they're Cockney, I don't know. Maybe they're criminals from a century ago. But you know what? That's kind of typical of all superheroes, where they take on a lot of white villains that, you know, you can't, in real life, you don't have street gangs who are made up of mostly white people plus an Asian and one black guy thrown in, you know. That's not really what the gangs on the streets of Gotham would look like, but instead they look like they're all gangsters from the 1930s. Nobody dresses like that, but that's the way they tend to make the villains in Batman. It's the way they tend to do with all the comic books. So I can't pick on this as being any more ridiculous. Also, Black Manta, who in the comics always had black guys as his, you know, runner-ups, same thing. It's like all white guys and Asians, and I didn't see any other black henchmen at all. I kind of wonder if they even, you know, hate that they have to have Black Manta be black. But I know that sounds weird, but just think about the fact that, you know, the people who are on the extreme SJW woke crowd, they tend to, you know, it's like if this person's a minority, they can't be a bad guy. I mean, in Doctor Who recently, they even had Davros walk just because you can't have somebody in a wheelchair be a bad guy. That's ridiculous. You should have people of every sort who are good and bad, but it's like, no, only white guys can be bad guys, and that's kind of weird. But it's not a big deal. I mean, it really isn't pedantic in this way. And like I say, there's like an Asian woman who's one of his right-hand people, and then there is the main doctor who is serving Black Manta, who's kind of reluctant to be there. And it does kind of make you wonder, where does he get these henchmen and why? There's no explanation for that, especially when you're trying to destroy the Earth. The Earth is where all their families live, so why they go along with it, you don't know. It's just for no explanation. He has a giant submarine full of guys. And where do you get that submarine? No idea. There's a thing where he's attacking Atlantis and people show up and it's Aquaman's wife and mother are like in with what should be like the police or the guards. It's like, why are they at the front? Why were they like they're expecting something to happen? That's kind of weird too. It's just a little contrived. Why is the mother of the king leading the charge? It doesn't really make sense. By the way, if she still exists and she's the queen, shouldn't she be on the throne? They don't really talk about that either. Maybe it's because it has to be a patriarchy. It has to be a guy. I don't know. The monster of the Lost Kingdom in the beginning, I'm not going to say much about it because I want it to be a surprise, but supposedly he's freed because of global warming, and there's like gigantic chasms of unmelted area under the ice. But why it would be under the ice, I don't know. There's ice on all sides, so why is there a big cavern of unfrozen water? That doesn't really make sense, but, they just say, it's global warming. But then they also make the point that would not unfreeze the frozen bad guys because they were frozen by magic. So why is the big monster able to attack? That's never explained. That's just one of those little tiny, again, it's a nitpick. I'm a nerd. I nitpick about stuff like that. But I do like that Atlantis, instead of being all pompous about the surface and pollution, it's like, oh, you land dwellers and you're poisoning our oceans. No, they admit that they were even worse. In ancient times, they were ruining the planet. And that's why they got rid of the energy source they were using, which is resurfaced in this movie. All in all, I could pick apart every movie. I pick apart movies I love all the time. I can tell you dozens of things wrong with the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. I still love them. It's the same thing here. I like this movie a lot, and I think it's a great time out. I'm interested in seeing what other people had to say. I've been avoiding every other review because I imagine a lot of people are going to be really against it. I don't think there's any reason to hate this movie just because the DCEU is getting reset. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future. I know that all 10 things that they were talking about is going to happen in the next DCU movies. I don't see them all happening, quite frankly. There's an Authority movie. No, I don't think so. That's not going to happen. A lot of this stuff is going to get scaled back, and I think they're going to be rethinking superhero films beyond Superman and Batman, just because they are too expensive. This movie looks very expensive. It looks well done. I think it's one of the better movies. I certainly think it's better than a lot of what has been released for the last 2 years. The Flash movie, you could tell that was going to be bad. Everybody knew that was going to be bad. The Aquaman movie, there's no reason why it should be bad. It's done by all the same people who made the first good movie. Like I say, if you like the first one, you should like this one. If you didn't like the first one, you're not going to like this one. I don't know why you would all of a sudden like this one. Unless you really are like me, you didn't like the fact that the first plot was way too packed and this one having a straightforward plot is better. But really, if you didn't like the first one, I don't think you'd like this one either. But that's my feelings on it. I encourage you to give it a chance if you can, because I had a good time. And I would like to applaud the guys for making it, because they clearly have done their research into Aquaman, and they did a good job. As an Aquaman fan, I have to say that. So, thank you for hearing me out. Now you can go watch all the reviews that trash it. Bye.